Just got the kids to bed. Kids are weird. Can I just say that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's popular for old folks to talk about the young generation.
Right? I know.
Next, you'll be complaining about their music isn't really music.
Well, I mean, their comics isn't really comics. Can I say that?
Hey, there we go, keeping it on topic.
It's true.
You're listening to And This Is Why I Love Comics.
Andy and Mike. Andy and Mike.
He's so tired and old.
Why am I saying this out loud?
Can you hear me okay?
And welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Love Comics. I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
And here's Matt.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, that's right. We're joined by Matt 10.0. And he is some Spider-Man
Recommendations?
recommendations. Thank you. And what we should have read instead of Kraven's Last Hunt might have been good. Of course, Matt was on a while ago now. I think episode 3 it ended up being with the convention.
The con game.
Yeah, the con game, one of our most popular episodes. He's back again. I'm not sure how many cons he has gone to since we talked to him last. Probably a couple. More than I have, that's for sure.
Yeah, maybe a couple. Like a couple smaller ones.
So we're going to have a chat with Matt. We figure the next episode after that's going to be our Christmas week episode. What better way for a December episode than have old friends back on again?
Aww.
And catch up on things. We've been away a while. Mike and I have been hogging the microphone.
Yeah. Gives us a chance to wax nostalgic.
That's right.
You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's hoping to get invited back one more time. But he's saying that early on in the recording. We'll see how it goes as we continue on.
You guys suck.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those things that's like, man, if you guys can do it, I think anybody can do it.
Right. Yeah.
Just literally anyone.
Right. We set the bar really low. So. Mike.
Yes?
How you doing?
I had a massive project at work, and as a result, it kept having to push my vacation days back. And in doing so, they all basically accumulated in the last 2 months. So I'm like on a week, off a week, on a week, off a week. And I'm on a week this week, and holy mercy, it is just like, you come back in, and it's almost like, did everyone go feral? What happened? It's just,
What's
the
that
place.
smell?
Yeah. It's like they're eating each other. It's just this mess, chaos. But yeah, it was really, really bizarre to kind of get through this whole to the work environment after being off and then on, and even that sandwiching of time of being on. It was a lot of it was like, I'm catching up from what I missed last week, but I'm also prepping for when I'm out next week. So yeah, it's corporate America in its finest. That's one thing that's like, man, having left the toy industry to, on a full-time basis to go into the bank, it's all about stability. Because like when you think about when things go belly up as far as like economic stability, the bank is the one thing that will always be around, regardless of what you see in It's a Wonderful Life, keeping it to the Christmas theme.
It's the savings and loan.
Yeah. It's like, Mr. Potter. But yeah, the bank gets like bailed out no matter what. I mean, like everything else, it can go away. It's just like, keep the banks afloat. And it's like, if they keep the banks afloat, that keeps me employed. So I do like that, this stage in life. It was fun to kind of live loosey-goosey when you're younger and you're able to just like, yeah, I get up and move again. And I can move up for this other toy company. Yeah, I'll move again.
Pre-kids.
Yeah, well, even with the kids, but they were so young. They were like an elementary era. So it was like, they weren't quite rooted, but still, yeah, then it got to a point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Especially when they got into like the late middle school, early high school. It's like, yeah, we got to call it.
Well, Matt's from all over the place, so I mean, he's moved around.
Maybe you should think about getting into something more stable like sculpture. You know?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
job security right there.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. yeah, I've lived all over. Yeah, it's been kind of slow, but I have a few clients, a few irons in the fire right now. A couple big ones. They're all going to hit the fan at the same time.
Right, yeah.
So,
I do wonder, like, the process of sculpting for you, is it you're hired by them, you start working, and then 6 years from now it's done, or it's like boom, boom, like 4 months, 5 months? Like,
well, it's always an afterthought for the client. It's like, oh yeah, we should have got something going, and our opening is in 3 weeks. Can you have something done in 3 weeks? And I'm like, nope.
Doesn't work that way.
So yeah, I try my best, but usually someone will contact me and tell me genuinely what they're interested in, and then they throw it to a committee, and then that's where everything just starts sludging, and eventually you come up with an idea and you try to work on a timeline and just get it done as best you can. But, some clients are better than others.
I bet. When's that Stan Lee statue getting in downtown Grand Rapids?
Dude, that would be nice. Yeah, that's like my dream job, right?
Yep. Somebody just has to request it. Come on, Grand Rapids.
Yep.
Let's do this.
They did everything else at this point for what is it called? Art prize.
I did pretty well one year in Art Prize.
What was it that you showed, and then how well as well?
I did a 12-foot tall. It's sort of like a realistic welded crime scene from the 40s called Crime Wave, and I think I was number 26 out of 1,700 entrants.
Nice.
So not too shabby. I didn't win. I didn't get anything, but it was great fun, and I handed out thousands and thousands of business cards.
And that generated thousands and thousands of commissions?
It did generate like probably 7 or 8 commissions, like pretty good ones.
Yeah.
Like
that's good.
A design company in Chicago. They saw my piece from Art Prize in like an Art Prize catalog, and then that just sort of set a ball rolling to where I just kept getting commissions from them. So they're probably like my main client right now.
Now, have you had anybody come by and go like, do you do 3D, 3D printed work?
No one's ever said that. But I do 3D sculpted things. I mean, that's kind of it used to be more my bread and butter was bronze portraiture.
When you're doing that, is that like you're building it in wax, or how are you doing it when you cast? Are you building it in clay?
Yeah, I start out in clay and then take rubber molds from there and then get it cast.
Mercy, that's a lot of work.
You ever finish that big bronze penis?
Yeah, don't tell anyone about that.
I just made that up, Mike.
It's a secret.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't anticipating. I was like, how do I follow that one up?
It took a weird turn.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone. Some of that. Yeah, he was making it for Christmas ornaments. That's how we're bringing it back around. Hang this off the tree.
It becomes a tree.
It's like the star at the top.
Yeah, cool. Well, I've heard of people hiding pickles in their trees. I've never heard of that. Yeah, I'm actually on your website. Is this, I'm seeing some stuff where you've kind of like made 2D work with like, is this wire? What is this that you're using? Oh, it is wire. Okay.
Yeah,
it's
like
a couple different metals.
Yeah, it's like steel rod. It's like TIG welding rod. So
really
it was
cool.
kind of a way to combo drawing and sculpture, but between commissions for bronze pieces, and then those things kind of took off on their own, which was cool. But there's part of me that wishes I was back doing more bronze stuff. But doing the drawings in the wire is actually pretty cool because it pays pretty well and it's fast.
Yeah, because you're laying it down flat. You don't have to worry about dimensions.
Yeah. And
additive sculpture is always a little easier to contend with than that subtractive or, as you're building things up. I'm looking at the gun. That is fantastic. The pistol, the revolver,
thanks. Thank you.
Yeah,
was that
really,
the Crime
really
Wave
cool.
piece?
Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah, that worked out well, though. That's really clever.
Thank you.
We'll have to add your website to the show notes.
See, that's how we get him back again, Andy. Good idea.
Get me some commissions.
I think
And then as far as your busts, like the head sculpts in the bronze, yeah, we were talking about. At least I'm trying to keep it clean here, Andy.
You talking about my
Why?
busts?
Yeah,
we do work out every day.
yeah. It's like nice rack.
Nice.
Thank you.
The are those life size? What scale are you putting these things at?
I'm not looking at what you're looking at. So which one are you looking
Oh, I'm
at?
sorry. The Rosa Parks piece is one in particular that I saw.
Oh yeah, that one was life size. The ones for like Cooley Law School, those are like a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I've seen that one in person.
Yeah, it's still there. It's weird. They sold the building downtown, but they kept the sculptures out in that courtyard.
For future generations to wonder.
Who the hell is that guy?
Yeah. I'm digging this one also that has Robbie the robot and the robot from Lost in Space.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that a commission? Who's the gentleman in the foreground?
Originally, it was going to be like a sort of like a Magnus the Robot Fighter type of guy.
Oh yeah, I can see it with the man skirt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what do they call that? It's not a man skirt. It's a...
It's not quite a kilt because it's not long enough.
Yeah, I forget what it's called.
Sure.
Anyway, that was one of like my first like larger scale experiments to see if I could do that in the welded wire.
Okay, that's really nice. Yeah, the atomic explosion in the background. That dude's just happy to have caused it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look, there's UFOs shooting like death rays into the city.
Yeah, you just needed to put one cow being abducted, and that would have made it all the better. Oh, I like that. Actually, yeah. Wow, that is a lot of welding. Because I'm looking at like, so when you do your welding, you don't really necessarily like smooth it all the way out to kind of like blend it in. It's what is that stuff? Flux, right? Isn't that what it's called or something like that? That's used to hold the metal together.
Well, that piece, I think when I was experimenting, I was using a MIG welder, which is like a lot, a little messier and chunkier.
Yeah.
But all my newer pieces, I use a TIG welder, which is a little cleaner, but I still kind of just keep it loose and chunky because, no one cares about the little welds. If you stand back, you're just looking at the picture.
Yeah, and it adds a little bit of like the human touch. It's not necessarily completely devoid of. It's like, wow, that's something that was done by a robot. It's like, no, this is actually produced by hand and a one of a kind. So, do you store this stuff if it's not sold, or do you have everything sold before you build, kind of a thing?
Well, that's kind of the thing. I made a couple of larger pieces to show what I could do. And, you always hope that someone's going to buy those. But what ends up happening is a client sees it and really likes the technique, but they want something more catered to their own needs. So I end up making other stuff. So I've got 2 or 3 pieces stored in my studio. A whole bunch of them are, like in corporate headquarters and reception rooms. And I have a piece out in San Francisco that's just a privately owned piece. It's like a roller derby themed piece.
Oh yeah, with the kind of, because I'm looking at that one, has kind of the Roy Lichtenstein's like kaboom, K bombs or H bombs.
Yeah. I was, the first time I did that was for the recoil piece of the guy that was sort of shooting the semi-automatic handgun, and I think I put blam in it or something, and that was directly sound effect right from a Kirby drawing.
Classic.
I love comics, of course, and I wanted to incorporate it into my work, and that went over pretty well. So people keep asking me to do that in their pieces.
Yeah, it just adds that extra, especially when it's got that color. It draws your eye right to it.
Splash of red.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I'm seeing what looks like you have a blam on the site. Dang, I'm sorry. This makes for interesting radio, and I'm describing something you're supposed to just look at, but it shows like you had drawn it all out, and then you're placing your pieces on the drawing to make certain it was all in accordance to how you had it initially laid out. And this is on the verge of like stained glass, kind of, without the glass.
Exactly. And they're meant to be backlit, so they read more like a drawing than they do like a welded piece.
You two both have an art style. Mike, you went to Kendall.
Yeah, back in the day. Got a lot to show for it, I do.
What did you go to school there for?
Illustration was the key that I went there with that in mind. It was just my intent, and this is where the school was. It was good, and it kind of also fell apart as a result. And the part of it was I went there with the intent of doing like comic books as my forte. That I was going to draw comics, but
Yep.
that was absolutely frowned upon. It was like, wow. That's for lesser beings. We are artistes. And you're like, oh boy.
We're fine artists.
Yeah, exactly. And, it was good, because I got the fundamentals, I got the foundations, I got, I had years of life drawing and I had good instructors for it. But there was something that was absolutely lacking, even though this was an illustration course, it was storytelling. They talk about composition, they talk about layout, but they don't tell you about telling a story. Do an illustration based off of a book, and they explain, like, okay, here's what you'd get if you're a book illustration, like for a cover. You'd get like a chapter or of a book, and from that core chapter is all you're going to be given to create a cover. And so we had a couple of examples where we did that. But when I looked at it, it was like, yeah, these are all nice stagnant pieces, but nothing told the story. It was just like you took a photo. And I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a difference between actual storytelling and art, where you get a sense of movement, you get a sense of like, there's a history there, there's something going on, there's but it's like, nope, this was just perfectly rendered individuals or perfectly rendered situation, but it just lacked life and it lacked a sense of like a better scope of things. So
it's like the difference between like a Kirby comic cover and like a Art Germ like variant cover.
Yeah.
One is beautiful art and one's telling a story.
Yeah. It loses, there's no drama to it. I did have, and oddly enough, it was a high school teacher who told me this, and it stuck with me throughout my entire time at college. They don't teach art, they teach craft. And there's a big difference. It's like, yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess it's up to each individual person to make it art, as opposed to just, you kick out a cookie cutter illustration or you kick out a cookie cutter sculpture, you kick out a cookie, but if it doesn't have a semblance of life or story or something going on as to why you're doing what you're doing, then it's just craft. It's like you might as well just be making, hot pads and selling them at the local bazaar. Yeah, it's like, yep, I just wove this together. Here's the hot pad. Here's another one. Yep. This one's blue. And that's about it. Making leather wallets, kind of the same thing. So,
well, that's kind of the challenge of commission art, which I do, is you have to sort of work within the parameters of the client, but it's also a great challenge to try to be artistic within those parameters.
Yeah, because I'm really fixated on this Blam, the one with the guy with the gun. That's a nice piece, and it just gives that sense of, you can tell this guy is squinting. He's, there's a story there, and yet it's a nice standalone piece. You don't have to, you look at it and go, that's really cool. And you can move on, or you can really, look at it and go like, wow, check this out. Look at this backdrop. Now, is that some sort of vellum that you've stretched behind it? What's the canvas behind the thing?
It's just Tyvek. I was kind of in a hurry because I was coming down the finish line and I had to get it over to the Ford Museum for Art Prize. So I'm like, what can I put behind it where I can light it from behind? And I had this big roll of Tyvek, and I was like, I'm just going to sew in a sheet of Tyvek, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I've got multiple wallets that I've made because Sharpie markers work well on that material. Yeah. And I draw and make my own little wallets, and then, that's about the only art I've been doing lately, and I'll just have it for myself. But that material is like pretty much indestructible, except, you can cut it, but it's pretty amazing.
One of my more recent ones, I've done a couple of bas reliefs, and I did a bas relief for Kentucky for the Trail of Tears Memorial. You might see it. There's a picture in clay of a woman and a child.
Yeah. Yep. I did see that one. And it shows like you have there's like a sculpting tool nearby it.
Did you see the colossal pieces that I've worked on? Virgin Mary?
Yeah. The Madonna.
Yeah.
Holy
yeah.
Moses, dude. Where are you assembling this?
Yeah. I had a really large studio in Delaware before I moved to Michigan.
Okay.
and I made it in quarters and then assembled it outside.
Oh, mercy. Yeah, that's really cool. Because I was looking at this thing, and I'm like going, I just imagine this in like someone's neighborhood. You know, like you're assembling this in the backyard, and it's like, you know, your neighbors are going, "Dang it, Matt's at it again!" And then this thing gets
It's so
taller
loud.
and taller. And it's like, this is like 40 feet tall. When's it going to end?
I thought he was just
Exactly.
building a deck.
Yeah. An in-ground pool would have been sufficient, but this giant statue? Eesh.
Yeah, exactly.
Now
I did
gotta
2 of them.
consider religion and stuff with it when I look at the backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was that a commission piece, or was that just something, a labor of love that you were putting together?
Oh, that's definitely a commission piece. That was back when I was apprenticing with my mentor, a guy named Charles Parks, who was the president of the National Sculpture Society. He got commissioned to do that piece, but he was, 75. So he couldn't really do it. So he hired me, and I did the first one for him. And it was supposed to be like a one shot, like he hired me to do this for him. And then he liked how it turned out. So he kept me on, and he, basically apprenticed me for 10 years how to make sculpture. So I ended up making a couple of those colossal pieces for him. And then after I moved to Michigan, I opened up my own studio and started taking commissions.
Have you done any more of that scale since moving?
No. I had a really big studio off of Hall Street when I first moved here. And that's where I did the Cooley Law School pieces. I did like Thomas Cooley, and I did a homeless person.
Yep.
I did it in that studio. But then, most of the pieces that we're getting were like more manageably sized. So when we moved out to where I live now, I had a large enough space where I could do it in there and not have to pay rent. So I just went that path.
The overhead, as much as I would love to have like an office to do whatever I wanted to do, and granted I have my office, but there's something about having like this retreat. Even my dad in his later years, he wanted to get back into painting, and so he rented an office space to get painting, and he would go out there and, put some paint down and then, do some studies and stuff and try to get himself back up to speed. But it was just that kind of like that retreat that like you got away from where you're at so that you feel like you're away and where you're supposed to be at.
Your dad was an art teacher to start with, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So he taught art for several years and then moved up through the school system after a while there too. So he kind of...
That's when I met him. He was
yeah. He's one of those people that you could look at him and go like, he's got to be in like some sort of school administration. He just looks like somebody. Yep. School principal. Oh, yeah. There's some people when they walk into the room, you just kind of feel like, dang it, I got to confess sins, or I got to,
I can't run with scissors.
Yeah. But yeah, he went to, got his master's in fine art. And, we've got his sculptures, and we've got his, some of his sculptures, I should say, and some of his paintings here at our house. But then my mom still has quite a few of his paintings there, and several of them are just gone, over the years. They just kind of went away. But he sculpted in lead, which is like, oh, really? Yeah, it was an interesting, because there's a couple pieces that I have that are his lead pieces, and one, they weigh like 1,000,000 pounds, but the method that was used to build it was really interesting because there's these striations, because he could pour it in sections at a time, and it was, you can see like where, it's almost like these, horizontal lines that go across all the sculptures. It was just, that was the method that he had learned or understood or was able to pull off or whatever. But yeah, it was interesting to see how that, some of his sculpture work. And there's some when he was in the military, it was drafted. I don't know if it still exists, but he did a bunch of paintings at the military base in Puerto Rico.
Really?
And and that was like, I'm like, you got drafted, you're in the military in a high time of intense turmoil in the world. And here he is, like, I just made a sculpture, and I'm making paintings on the side of the barracks, and it's like, oh, and in Puerto Rico at that. And it's like, yep, not too bad.
That's pretty awesome.
But yeah, and he also, it's kind of funny how much my life kind of paralleled his. It's like he went to school for art and did it for a while, but then drifted into corporate and then just kind of abandoned art altogether.
Yeah, it's tempting.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I've hit, is that like I went to school for this, had it, did it. Now I'm moving on to other things, and actually I'm having more fun doing these other things, not necessarily the 9 to 5 job, but I'd like to say I fully embrace doing podcasting for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's no money in this,
Oh, dang it!
What?
What happened? You never told me that part. I've been doing this all this time and nothing.
I'm out.
Yeah,
waiting for your paycheck.
yeah. You keep saying it's in the mail, but I know I live out in the middle of nowhere. But even the post office eventually will get to me.
Right.
I'm still waiting for the other check for the other appearance.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Keep on waiting.
Matt, we okay. By we, I mean I picked out a. No, wait. Did you, Mike? I bet you, Mike did.
Well, yeah, that was a mixed bag. It was one of those things like we should do, because we try to. Yeah, we try to shift things around so we don't show a favoritism to one publisher or another. And obviously, it was time for us to go back to the Marvel pit. And
yeah, you guys are DC guys.
I don't know. I don't think I can say that I am, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, I know Andy is.
Yeah. I mean, I went through my collection, and I was, and we can talk about this as well, but I went through my collection to see, like, what do I really want to hold on to and what do I want to get rid of? And in doing so, I kind of, like, resorted. There's a YouTube guy that I really appreciate, and he basically said that how he does this stuff, because he owns a comic shop, it's like, I sort things by Marvel, I sort things by DC, and then I sort things by everything else. That's it. It doesn't matter what publisher it is. It's either Marvel, DC, or everything else. And it doesn't matter, Image, Dark Horse, Archie, all of it. It just kind of goes that way. So I went through and sorted my books that way myself, and I kind of came up with almost identical, like 3 piles, like almost the same amount of DC as I had Marvel, and then everything else, was about the same size of a stacks.
That wouldn't happen for me,
No.
I have like probably 15 long boxes of DC, and then I'd probably have 3 or 4 of Marvel. Maybe.
Wow.
Something like that. I mean, I have a good run of Avengers. I have a good run of X-Men.
Yeah.
And then a spattering of other things, but whatever. I had to pick one. I had a budget when I was a kid, and I picked it.
I have like maybe 65% Marvel, and I've got maybe 2 or 3 boxes of DC stuff, and the rest is all independent stuff.
Matt and I were talking on the Facebook, and both came to the conclusion separately. And at least I did, that maybe my collection needs to be thinned, not because I have too much of it, or maybe it is a little too much of it. It's just I don't feel the urge to buy them like I did even last year. I bought so much Justice League of America to try to round out that collection, and I'm down to 10 issues or 9. It wasn't that the money was more prevalent back then. I have the same amount of money this year, and I bought 1 this year, and it just I just think, is it an age thing? You can't take it with you, and I'm looking at all these boxes in my storage unit, and I don't get to read them like I used to. There was a time when I would read every issue at least 4 or 5 times. I mean, and I might have only had a long box or 2 back then, but I knew those stories by the back of my hand, and now I bought stuff that I have not even remembered I bought.
Yeah. Or bought multiples of it because you still don't remember buying it even after 2 or 3 times.
Right. And I don't know, am I losing? I mean, I have a podcast called And This Is Why I Love Comics. And so I don't want to quit comics, but maybe I am fatigued, I guess is the word.
A little burnout.
Yeah, a bit of a burnout. How about you, Matt?
I was so singularly focused on finishing runs that I had that I think I was buying them so much more than I was actually reading them. And the intention was that when I finish this run, I'm just going to read this whole thing from start to finish. And what happened really is that I would move on to a different run and start doing that one. So I think maybe I'm more of in a reading stage than I am in a buying stage. I did buy a lot of comics this year. I sort of feel like I'm just doing it because that's what I do. Like I like buying comics and it's fun. And I've done this 2 or 3 times where I'll decide that, maybe I gotta cull the herd a little bit, and I'll take a good portion of it out of my collection and I'll sell them, and then I'll end up using that money to buy like a big key that I was missing, or finish a run or something like that. So I think maybe I might be in that stage again.
And Mike, you were going through your comics. Was that to get rid of them, or?
Yeah, I think on my end, it's more about, I'm not saying like, behold, I am the creature from the future and I bring you digital comics. But, it's just like, crap, it's so much easier to read digital comics these days. And I don't have to store a digital comic. So I'll tell you this tale, and it's the same that it's a cautionary tale that's kind of hit me. My wife's uncle passes away. This dude was like an avid collector of just random stuff. I mean, he would videotape every Macy's Day Thanksgiving or Macy's Thanksgiving Day parades for decades. He had them on VHS tape.
Wow.
Why not?
And so this dude was like anything, he was obsessive about stuff. Well, he had every Mad magazine since like the early 60s. And these things were all like in chronological order. They're bag boarded and in these container tubs that were like perfect for these magazines. And he passes away. My in-laws, for one Christmas, says to my son, we feel that you would be the one who could really, would really appreciate this collection, and gives him that entire run of Mad Magazine.
Wow.
There are 14 tubs of Mad Magazine.
Goodness. That's insane.
And and it was like, plop, here you go. And my son's like, well, this is great. Like when he got these are going back to subject matters, because Mad Magazine was great about parody, and a lot of those, even the covers, it's like, who's this supposed to be? And it's like, oh, that's Telly Savalas from Kojak, or that's
Back then.
yeah, whatever. Yeah, was that's Bo and Luke Duke, the Duke boys of the Dukes of Hazzard. It's just like, it was that kind of thing where you had to explain it. And he's like, this is great, and now they're in the basement. And I'm thinking like, okay, now they're still in the same containers. They've been looked at. They've had appreciated. That's very true. But my son doesn't, he's not going down there every day to read another one. And I'm thinking like, if that's what happened to my wife's uncle with his stuff, what's going to happen with my stuff?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, here's a Haywire, the comic series that lasted 13 issues. Any takers? Any takers on that? I mean, I got rid of Propeller Man, and that was more of the Greg Brady voodoo doll curse. It's like, I gave him to somebody else, and you touched it last. The curse is on you now with Propeller Man.
I have issue 1 in my hand right now.
Right, a moment's notice. That's going to be read. The guy made his costume out of dolphin skin. I mean, if that tells you how quality that comic was. And I'm thinking no one's going to want any of these comics when I'm done. So that's kind of where I was getting to a point of I got a lot. I got to get rid of these things. And, with so much of it being available digitally, I think I can just manage getting these things on digital. I'll read them once, and even if I delete the file, it's not taking up any space. Unlike you, Ed, I don't think I've ever went back to reread anything outside of maybe about a handful of titles I could say I've read more than once. And I wouldn't even say titles. I would say either The Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen. There's finite series that it's okay, it had a good solid beginning, it carried the story and ended. I'll reread that one because at least it had that arc. I love reading books, and I love reading these comics, but to actually own the floppies, that was one of the things I was going to ask is Yeah, have you guys gone through any transition period of going from, okay, I got the floppies, but you know what? I can get rid of these and get these trades. And then it's like, oh, I got these trades, but you know what? I can get rid of these and I can get these digital versions. Have you guys gone through that metamorphosis of the caterpillar to butterfly?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not really into the idea of digital stuff, mostly because I just kind of feel like I don't own anything, I guess I'm kind of a collector. Maybe Andy could tell you about this, but I like to give away a lot of comics. And, I feel like I can't give away digital comics, and it's fun to just hand someone a stack of comics, Well, when I first started the Facebook comic fan group, that was one of the things I was doing to get rid of comics, was I'd come up with these fun comic packs, and I'd ask a trivia question, and if someone could answer it, I would mail them out a pack of comics. Yeah, and that was super fun. I love giving away stuff. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I've given away more comics than I have, and my son and I have had this conversation. He's only 11, and so he was looking at them, and he said, I wouldn't even know where to start. So I pulled out about 3 or 4 of the best short boxes, and I drew an H on there for his name. So I put an H on them, and I said, these are the 4 boxes that you should keep, and the rest of them you could keep if you want, but don't feel bad if you want to get rid of them. These are the ones that are worth money, and you probably shouldn't just give them away.
At least think about it first.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea. I have 5 children, and the 3 older boys have claimed their favorite character. Like, do you have any Flash? Oh yeah, I have a long box of Flash. Oh, those are mine then.
Right.
They're looking at you as future profit.
Right, yeah. Right. So
Please die, Dad. I could use some cash right about now.
They've all claimed certain characters and stuff, which is cute. I mean, I don't care. If you want to, as long as you don't fight over them, you can have whatever you want, because I'm going to be gone. So.
I'll be dead.
It's your problem, not mine. And so that's good. I mean, I've gone through, like Matt said, through stages where I've gotten rid of a bunch of stuff. When I went through a divorce, I needed some cash, so I sold probably half my collection. It was a necessary evil. I still miss a couple handfuls of those books, but not really. And the ones I really could get again, I probably have gotten again. So, there's not a real big loss there. I go through stages where I never bought a new comic, and then I bought 90 a month, at one point.
Oh man, the good old days.
Yeah. So, I understand that my own collection goes through phases, and there was a time when I'll get rid of all my Starmans and just get the omnibus or Hellboys, and then that ends up just on a shelf too. It's the same thing. I'll read it once, or if I've read all the Starman comic and then I buy the first omnibus or whatever, not the omnibus, but the first deluxe edition, I start reading it a couple times, and then I never end up reading it because I know the story anyway. So it's a weird phase in my life right now, in the last probably decade, that I've had to just struggle with, what am I going to collect? What's my goal here? And that's partly why I bought all those Justice Leagues. Is, I wanted, since I was 8 years old, I wanted this whole series. So I'll just focus on that. I've gotten as close as I probably want to, maybe. I don't know if I want to spend $8,000 on an issue 1, or I'm not sure I'm ready for that, having that. But I mean, it'd be a good investment if I had it. So mainly I've crossed into some digital, but I don't like the feeling of just digital. I like reading the paper copy. That's the old fuddy-duddy in me. And mostly been buying lately digests and Treasury Edition. Nothing new excites me in Marvel or DC. So some of that's my fault, and some of it's their fault.
Right. Mostly theirs.
Mostly theirs. I've enjoyed a little more independence. I'm in this House of Slaughter. There's Something That's Killing the Children I really love. So there's stuff out there that I will continue to get, but I'm at a strange feeling that might be time to condense. Is it age? Is it because we're over 50 now?
Yeah, I kind of wonder, and this is completely whether, I don't think this is based on anything Freudian or otherwise, like there's some sort of deep psychological read here, but yeah, it was your mother. It all boils down to no, but it was the aspect of like the spandex wearing superheroes and the angst you had as a teen just isn't there. Where you felt like
Right.
that made sense. I could do this. I could be this hero because I have the youth, vitality, the exuberance, and all of that. But now that I'm older, it's like I don't see that I can relate with Robin running around in this green shorts and Robin Hood booties. It's like that just doesn't seem like that's something I should be reading anymore. But then there's somewhere, yeah. Hey, Boy Wonder. But then
Old chum.
yeah. But then, like, you get something like an Ed Brubaker book, and you're reading those, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, so this is more, it's steered completely. And it's like Hellboy was a great transition. It's kind of the gateway drug to other, it's like it has some superheroics, but it also has Lovecraftian horror. It also has, these giant kaiju type monsters and these deep, myth, and creatures from other regions, like the Baba Yaga. It's like I didn't remember a whole lot about Baba Yaga prior to Hellboy. I knew enough of her, but I didn't know, like, oh yeah, the witch that had the chicken-legged house and all this other weirdness. But it's like, oh man, that's really cool, and it gets you interested in other things. And it helps expand as opposed to being like this, like continuity driven, like, well, Martian Manhunter came down and he fears fire, and it's like, well, okay, but he's still going to punch somebody, right? Yeah, okay. And that's, you kind of want a little bit deeper story. And I think that's where, like I said, the Ed Brubakers have like really his books. And I think like you had mentioned that Something's Killing the Children, has the same kind of feel to a degree. Like if you've read Fatale, that has a lot of the similar feel that Something's Killing the Children had.
Yeah, it's great. Anything that Brubaker and Phillips, I'm sold.
Yeah. I just went through, and I've got those in, some of them because they've been coming out in like these trade, like hardcover volumes, as opposed to floppies, and those I've been picking up, like, because like Criminal is a great series, and those have been, that's their latest, I think, ventures. Is it Criminal or
it's Reckless?
Reckless, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's really good too.
And it's like, man, these things are just great stories, told in a comic book medium. That's what I enjoy, like, immensely now.
Why haven't you read any of those?
No, we have not. And then there's several that are like really long, like Fatale is a really long series, but it's broken up into smaller chunks. And then Kill or Be Killed, that's a good series, but that also takes a bit. But then there's other things that are just one shots, like The Long Weekend. These things are like really, really short to be considered like basically like 2 floppy issues and it's done kind of a thing. It was that length of a story. Brilliant story, but they're very much off the path of the traditional comics, and that's where I thought like Q might have been from last podcast. Is like, oh, this is going to be a nice independent book.
To be honest, if I don't really like the artwork, I don't really read it.
It's amazing, really, how much of because comics is a very visual medium.
Yes.
It is amazing. Like, it could be the greatest story of all time and have crap artwork, and you're like, pass.
You're like, I'd never know. I wouldn't read it.
Yep. Just can't get into it. Can't get past this art.
And some people, it's all about the story, and they don't care about the visuals at all, and I guess I don't understand them at all.
They're not my friends.
Yeah, exactly. Well, regarding sort of more mature themes in comics versus like superheroes, like I'm a big Spider-Man guy, and I have a full run of Amazing Spider-Man from like #1 all the way to present with all the annuals and everything. But you know what? Spider-Man hasn't been good in 15 years. But I'm still gonna buy it because now I feel like I'm sort of locked in. Like I can't just all of a sudden stop buying Spider-Man. But the other ones I feel like I could get rid of.
Yeah, I mean that's quite an impressive run, and I mean you could, in theory, stop at a certain point and just say I have, up until 2023 or something. But yeah, there is something more impressive of I have every amazing that they ever made ever.
Right. And there was something I was telling my wife too, is that it's something that's always been in my life since I can remember ever learning to read. Spider-Man has always been there. So there's something a little bit sad about like not buying a new Spider-Man comic.
Yeah. And it's very sad that it hasn't been good in 15 years. We read Kraven's Last Hunt.
That was more than 15 years ago. So.
It was sputtering along then.
And I said in that podcast, that's it. I saw it several times that's considered like one of the top 5 stories of all time, and I just wasn't a fan of it. So, Matt, what was going on with that? Is there really 4 super great, awesome stories before that, and then after 5 it just drops down to nothing?
Yeah, kind of like how you see like marathon runners. It's like the first 2 are done in no time, and then it's like 20 minutes later, here comes number 3.
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh.
What was I missing in that?
Oh, in Kraven's Last Hunt?
Yeah.
I actually didn't like it. It's one of the arcs that I didn't really like a whole lot, and I think maybe the reason was it didn't read like a Spider-Man comic book. And if you kind of read the history of how it came about, J.M. DeMatteis, he had tried to sell that story to DC Comics like 3 times with different characters. His first incarnation was Wonder Woman, and the bad guy was going to be the Grim Reaper. And then he tried to sell it as a Batman and Joker story, and they rejected it. And then he tried to sell it as a Batman Hugo Strange story, and it was rejected again. And then finally he submitted it to Marvel, and I'm pretty sure DeFalco rejected it at first, but then eventually it turned into Spider-Man, Kraven, and Vermin. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the flowery purple prose. I think people. my theory is that people who say they really liked it a lot, they're kind of like, I don't know if they're telling the truth. Right. I think it's like everyone says it's a really good story, but like if you read it, it's I don't know. It's not an enjoyable read, in my opinion.
I would also probably say, because they hyped it up, that probably a lot of the readers are the proverbial Spider-Man readers to begin with, and they didn't come back afterwards either.
Right.
So they bought that series, said, hey, that was kind of a fun read. That's what Spider-Man's like. That's cool. And never went back to read another book.
Yeah, and then it's like Hypno Hustler afterwards,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
You're like, this is not the same. And I hated the character Vermin.
Oh, good. I was just going to say that to you. I just didn't get him.
Yeah.
Why not use the lizard or something cooler?
And I think what it was, it wasn't a Spider-Man story. It was a Kraven story. It was kind of like Killing Joke. That was a Joker story. Not a Batman story. Yeah. But like they even, to answer the whole, I guess DeMatteis, you probably already covered this, but DeMatteis got a bunch of flack because the people were acting like he was encouraging suicide.
Right. Yeah.
And so they came out with Soul of the Hunter, following up. It was basically like Kraven's Ghost, and that sucked too. Yeah.
Which one had it where like his daughter or was like voodoo lady? And
to be honest, I've never really liked Kraven, and really the only novel thing about that story was that he killed himself. And that was kind of like a shocker ending that made it seem worthwhile, but like it spanned like 3 titles. And the artwork was good. All the covers were great, and the Mike Zeck art was pretty decent. But honestly, I wouldn't put that on like the top 10 Spidey stories.
Yeah, the covers we didn't really talk about, but the covers were great.
Yeah.
Mike Zeck, that's solid. But,
Well, it goes back to the Secret Wars syndrome. You know,
Yep.
Mike Zeck did great Secret Wars covers, but those interiors were for crap.
Yeah. Well, if you're 100% responsible for the entire miniseries, it's probably gonna falter when it comes to the interior art.
Yeah, there was some aspects to that story. I was like, man, if I only got it because I remembered it being like a big deal. So I didn't own the set originally. One of my older brothers actually bought it, and his comic collection was completely off limits to me. I could not touch it. I could not look at it. If I was in his room, he assumed I was going after his comics, and that would have been it for me. So I was like, okay. But years later, I bought it. I remember, I think I paid a pretty decent price for it because they were like, oh, yeah, this is the best Spider-Man story ever. And yeah, and then I read it going like, what is going on here? But I had, at that time, bought all 6 issues already at that point. And yeah, it's like, dang it. But I just, but in hindsight, that was like, a few years, maybe a year or so after that series had wrapped up. I just remember thinking like, holy crap, this is going to be something great. And I kind of remembered the atmosphere of what I remembered as a kid around that story. So it wasn't really the story. It was just the fact that my brother had it, said it was good. The comic shop people were like, yeah, this is the best Spider-Man in ages. And something really, dramatic happened. And that was that single payoff at the end was what they were referring to as like, it had consequences. It was a book that actually meant something.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that was it. So yeah, so then rereading it now with full adult eyes and, understanding of what potential comics could be, yeah, it was kind of a stinker. But again, it's like now, looking at it as an adult, we're seeing it one way, but as when it was coming out, was that the best it ever, could be in comics?
What year did it come out? Was it like 83 or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, I was probably like 11 or 12 years old, and I probably didn't understand half the stuff I was reading.
True.
So, I definitely didn't like it then. And at that point, I was buying all 3 titles, Amazing, Spectacular, and Web. So I got them as they were coming out. And I remember, like, I couldn't wait till it was over. 87, yeah, wow. So I guess I was 15 or 16.
Yeah, that's... yeah, that... because there's some things when you look at like Golden Age comics, you look at the art and the stories and the characters, and you're like, this is crap. But when the Golden Age comics were coming out, people were like, I can't wait till the next adventure of Jay Garrett's Flash or not Wally West, who's the Alan Scott's Green Lantern. These stories are great, and they were selling amazing, but they didn't know any better. That was the best that they had available. And then now it's like, now you have amazing, like high end writers, like legit writers and artists that are just absolutely phenomenal. And so we're a little bit spoiled. So going back to looking at some of these older ones is like, yeah, it wasn't that good. But then if you put it in the context of the time, it's like, well, maybe it was something. Maybe it wasn't as bad, but now we look at it, it's like, yeah, that wasn't so good.
And comics were written for children.
Yeah, the same as this, if you watch like a sitcom from the 70s, and you're like going, please put in a joke. One. That's all I'm looking for. Make me laugh once on an episode. And it's like, so many of these things are not funny. But it's like, yeah, that was the height of comedy at that time. And
bringing it back to Kraven's last time, even Mike, you said that Spidey wasn't his quippy self. It was all dark. It wasn't a fun Spider-Man to read. The only thing I got out of that series was, okay, the black costume, I love it. And he should always do that one. Wear that one. And Vermin was lame. Other than that, Kraven died, and I think most people would say, who cares,
Right. There was that trope that I did like of the villain taking over the mantle of the hero and trying to prove that they are better than that person. Yeah. And I've read that in other comics too. I believe maybe at one point Bullseye pretended to be Daredevil. That was actually pretty good. I'll take that back. That was a good series and amazing. Yeah.
And you're a big Daredevil fan too, right? So
Yeah, I have every Daredevil also.
yeah.
Jeez.
Yep.
So something about the street level characters you really appreciate or love.
That's my favorite. And, I think that's why I transitioned into loving crime comics so much. It's like street level stuff. Like Frank Miller, like seedy New York alleyways, shadowy type stuff. It was a perfect transition to like Ed Brubaker and, like Sin City and 100 Bullets and Parker. Yep.
Oh, Parker. Yeah, I think I mentioned that one as a possible read.
Yeah, well,
Any
that's
of
super
those
good.
series.
I think that's in the next couple months.
Yeah, definitely do that. Those are great.
Especially because Darwin Cook understood that character. Darwin Cook understood the character, grabbed the first few novels, and did an amazing job transitioning that one. But I'll have to wait until Andy actually reads it before I go too terribly deep into that one.
They're definitely up there. They might be my top crime comics I own.
He did what, 4 of them, I think? 4?
Yeah, there's 4 of them. I have all of them. I love them.
Hmm.
And I've reread those a couple times. You can go back and reread those because the artwork is so concise and perfect, and Darwin Cook is just fantastic.
So Matt, let's get back to the real subject here.
Okay.
What should we have read for Spider-Man? And then
Man,
what's your top story?
Oh, man, that's tough because there's a lot actually. I was jotting down some notes of like my favorite ones so that they're not in chronological order, but let me see here. One that I bet you'd probably like, which is like relatively newer, probably the last 15 years. There was an arc called Back in Black, which came right after the Civil War series, when Tony Stark sort of like helped Peter out himself to everyone. And Kingpin, once he found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, he decided to take a hit out on him. But while the sniper was trying to shoot Peter, he shot Aunt May instead. And so it turns really dark really fast, where it's like a revenge tale. And the black costume is back for this arc, and he goes after Kingpin. And it's like really dark and super well written. I'd say that's a really good one if you're into more recent Spider-Man. The early Lee and Ditko and Romita stuff is fantastic. Death of Gwen Stacy, the death of the Green Goblin. There's a spectacular run right around 200. It was the death of Harry Osborn, and that's one of the best story arcs. Spider-Man No More, the death of Captain Stacy, super good.
Yeah.
Oh, the original Clone Saga from the 70s was really good.
Isn't that where
I heard you.
Spider-Mobile came from? Was that era too?
That was it was probably right around the same time, but you'd have like a really dark story, and then you'd have like Spider-Mobile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut. That's one of the best ones. There's also one where he fights the Fire Lord, which is basically like Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut on steroids. Let me see.
Fire Lord, like the Herald of Galactus Fire Lord?
Yes. Yeah, well, but basically what happens is Fire Lord, basically flies into town. I'm not sure why he was even, but the Avengers are off planet, and the Fire Lord's starting to make some trouble around New York, and there's literally he's running around trying to get help from the Avengers. They're off world. He tries to find the Fantastic Four. They're nowhere to be found. So it's basically up to Spider-Man to take on Fire Lord, which doesn't even make any sense, but it's like one of the best action-packed comics. There's like 2 issues, I believe. It's written by Tom DeFalco and drawn by Ron Frenz. That's super good. In Spectacular Spider-Man, there was the Sin Eater death of Jean DeWolf arc. That was really good. I could go on and on. There's a ton.
I'm seeing a pattern that
It's
every
death.
really good storyline is the death of.
Yes. That's the way they do it. Yep.
Except for Death of Kraven the Hunter.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't good at all.
Well, that was the best part of the story, though.
You're right. The only good thing.
Right. I will have to take a look at some of those. Some of them I've read. Like I've read the death of Gwen Stacy and her dad and stuff. Those are really good. But that was way back when, and I like some of the early Black Cat issues.
Oh yeah, those are great. A lot of those were in spec.
If the death of Gwen Stacy, would that have the same impact if it came out today?
No.
Seems that there was only one Spider-Man title back in that era.
Yeah, I think she was the first girlfriend of a superhero that actually died in comics, at least in Marvel, that actually died and stayed dead up until recently. It was interesting because, that was Amazing Spider-Man 121, and then it was like the 122 was the revenge issue where Spider-Man's going to take out the Green Goblin, and the Green Goblin, in an attempt to trick Spider-Man and kill him, he actually kills himself. So you had like 2 deaths in a row. So 121 and 122 are like essential must-have, Spider-Man stories. And he stayed dead for a really long time.
Right. Is he currently dead?
No.
This is what, his 3rd or 4th?
Yeah, it's almost like at
return?
a certain point, it's like they just needed to stop writing Spider-Man. I wish they stopped around like 400, 500, and then, because then the next writers come and they're like, yeah, what if we like brought back Kraven, or I don't know, it just destroys the whole mythology, in my opinion.
That's part of getting old is we've seen the stories already, and then they get replayed with just slightly better art, maybe, or coloring, and we've read it, we've seen it, and then they undo it, and then they think it's a new concept, and they do it again, or they do it just slightly different, and everybody goes, "Ooh, that's the best story ever." When you're going, well, they did that 200 issues ago. Where were you?
I was not a fan of that Amazing Wolfman, I think it was what the book was, but the Robert Kirkman.
You bring it up enough.
Man. Well, it's one of those things where it's like everybody knew where they were when Kennedy was assassinated, kind of a thing. It's like, because you can't shake it. It's just something that's like the trauma lives with you. You'll never be able to unlive that. The same thing with that Wolfman series. But one of the things that I did like, and it's like, this is the way comics should be done, was that Invincible title with these superheroes. Because like it starts off with him, his origin story, but it ends like there's a complete timeline, chronological, carries it all the way to the end. I mean, it's not, not to say spoiler alerts, because we've been told to say spoiler alerts, but but it's like when you know a progression and this character's life, every issue, there's something that happens. If you want continuity, then stick to continuity and really stick to continuity. Let these people age. Let these people get older. Let these people have, something that's happened. And, because it's like the anti-New 52 is like, okay, so these characters have only been around for 5 years, but Batman still has, 20 Robins, in
Right.
that 5-year span. He's been able to train and also have a 10-year-old son in that 5 years. It's like, how does that work? It doesn't. But, it's like, let them get older and let them either end their run or, move on to something else. But it's just, I think that's where I really appreciated that Invincible for. I mean, yes, it was a good story, and it had a lot of like pretty amazing, like, whoa, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I would equate it with a superhero version of Game of Thrones, where it was like, you told a good story, but you also threw in things just for pure shock value. It wasn't like that was absolutely required, but you definitely put it in there for good shock value.
Have you ever read Lazarus by Greg Rucka and Michael Lark?
No, I'm not even familiar with that.
It's very it's almost like futuristic Game of Thrones. It's so good. I highly recommend it. Oh, but speaking of Kirkman, I remember feeling like Walking Dead wasn't going anywhere, and it was just spinning its wheels for years. And the show was too. And just one day I just got mad at Robert Kirkman, and I just sold all of my Walking Dead comics, and I just stopped watching the show because I'm like, this is never going to go anywhere. And maybe I should have been reading Invincible.
I will honestly, that one I read all the way through. It was like I stopped reading anything else. The series had come to an end, and I just read it from issue 1 and just went through all. I think it was like 110 or something like that, 140, something like that. I can't remember, but it had a lot of issues. But it was like legitimately whatever happened before was a month or several months, the previous issue or something like that. So there was time and a sense of time passing, and you really got a good sense that this guy's getting older. There's things that are happening. He's making decisions in his life, and it's like, yep, this all works really, really well.
Yeah, there was good stuff in it. I really liked it. We're still talking about Walking Dead, right?
Oh man, I haven't bothered touching that. I looked at the books, but I never read the comics, and I made it through, I think, the first 2 seasons. And then I could see that this is getting to be a point of like, it's like watching Wheel of Fortune. It's the same thing every episode.
Exactly. Yeah, it was very formulaic. They get you really liking a character, and then they murder that character. And then they introduce another character, and you start to really like that one, and then that guy gets murdered.
No, I didn't mind Walking Dead. I read it in trade, and then I just got bored.
Yep.
And just stopped, and I've never gone back. And the television show, I watched up until like season 9. And I think I'm missing like 2 seasons. But after season 6 or 7, there was nothing that was interesting to me. I was just watching it because I'd watched the previous ones. And so it kind of faded out on me too. I think I'm done with that Walking Dead universe for now. It's played its course. Now, we haven't talked about conventions at all. That was your original show with us, was about conventions. And you said you went through a couple of small ones this year. Was there anything that stood out to you, Matt, that is interesting? Anybody you meet?
I went back and listened to the other podcast while I was working out today at the Y, and realized that I neglected to mention the Baltimore Comic-Con, and which I think is one of the best Comic-Cons if you're just purely looking for comics or meeting comic creators. Like there'll be like 100 guests there, and they're all like quality guests. It's like Walt Simonson, Steranko, Frank Miller will be there, all the big names in this smaller venue. And I just remember walking around. This was 2019, which was a few years ago, but it still feels like it was literally like, right before lockdown. And I remember going there, and I brought my wife with me, and that was the first time that she'd ever been to a convention. And I had a big backpack full of comics I just wanted to get signed. And that's basically what I do now is like, I'll see who's going to be guests at conventions, and I'll just dig through my comics and find comics for them to sign. So she followed me around for the first day, and she was a real sport about it. But then the next day she decided to trek off on her own and go to like the aquarium and just do fun stuff that she wanted to do.
She had enough.
Yeah, and she had a great time, and I had a great time. But, standing in line for 2 hours to see David Michelinie is not Kim's idea of a great time. Right. It was fun, and I remember meeting Walt Simonson, and I was really excited about getting his autograph on. I have like this big Superman versus Spider-Man like Treasury Jam cover of autographs. It's number 28, I believe, and he was one of the guys that worked on it. And I'm like, I absolutely got to get Walt Simonson. And I remember I got there, and the line was already cut off, and he wasn't going to let anyone else, or his handlers didn't want anyone else to get in the line. So everyone was like, oh man, they're really bummed out about it. And I remember just being like a total jerk, and when no one was looking, I just jumped into the back of the line, and everyone was looking at me, and everyone knew that I was a cheater, and I just did it anyway. I'm like, I've flown to Baltimore, I'm going to get Walt Simonson's autograph on this comic. Right. And when he walked down the line and was signing comic books, he he kind of gave me like this little side glance with a little glimmer in his eye, like, I know what you're doing. Because he saw the last guy in the line, and it wasn't me.
Right.
Yeah, when you see this guy, you know you're done. Oh, wait, who's
Yeah.
this?
And I kind of gave him a little smirk, too, and he signed it anyway, and it was cool. And then I walked immediately over to Wheezy Simonson and talked to her for a little bit. And, it's just like everywhere you look, it was cool people. Like Chaikin was there, Stan Sakai, Marv Wolfman. Just like, there was 100 guys there. So anyone you wanted to get an autograph from was available. So that was a big one, and I've done some local ones like the Great Lakes Comic-Con. And, they've had a few people there in the last few years, like the guy that did Infinity Gauntlet.
Jim Starlin.
Starlin, yeah. And the reason I remember that one so much is that's the convention I got COVID at.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, that was back before anyone knew what COVID was. And then literally everybody at that convention got sick as a dog like the week after. And then like a month or two after that, that's when they started calling it coronavirus and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's what I had.
That explains a lot.
Oh, and that's where I met Tom DeFalco, and he's like one of my favorite guys I've ever met, He seems like a guy who just really loves what he did, and he likes talking about it. And when I got in line to meet him, I got him to sign those Firelord comic books, and I told him, hey, Stan and Steve and John Romita are most people's favorites, but, you're really what I grew up with, and you're my favorite comic writer. And he almost teared up on me. He got so emotional about it. Yeah. And he was just a great guy.
Want to hear that? I mean, wow.
Yep.
Even if you affected one person.
Yeah.
That's great. We've been to a couple conventions selling and stuff. I don't think back yet from pre-COVID time.
And the guests definitely aren't.
Yeah, so I'm hoping it picks up again next year.
I think like C2E2 is probably, they're doing pretty well with guests and stuff, but I haven't gotten over there to one of those yet.
Yeah, I haven't ventured out to really any like true comic conventions. My son went to the Grand Rapids Comic Con, and I legitimately just dropped him off, wished him well, and kept on going.
Yeah, we hung out, so yay. All right.
Was that the most recent one?
Yeah. And that one was like, this celebrity guest is not showing up. This one is not showing up.
Yep.
And it's like,
But you can get gutters.
Yeah.
Right. Well, speaking of canceled guests, there's a guy that was supposed to be at the Grand Rapids Comic-Con named Steve Lealoa. And he was like an inker in the 70s. And he's like one of the only guys I need on that like Superman, Spider-Man jam cover. And I was going to go there just for him. And he canceled at the last minute, so I didn't go. But I think mostly I just go for signatures nowadays. Like I don't really buy a whole lot of stuff at Comic-Cons anymore.
Well, I think we've hit upon some things here. We don't want to keep it too long, and it's getting towards the midnight hour anyway. I want to thank Matt 10.0, which I didn't even tell the story of why you're 10.0 now. And,
Yeah, why am I all of a sudden 10.0?
well, you were Matt 1.0.
I know.
You were the first guest that we had on. And then we had another Matt, and he was Matt 2.0. And then, a few years ago, or was it last year? 2 years ago, I started calling you 10.0 because in real life, you came and jumped our van when we were stuck at the school, where
Oh, right.
where
I
we
forgot.
we were picking up children, and my wife had just had surgery, and that day had surgery, and she was kind of out of it, but we went to pick up I picked her up from the hospital. We went to pick up the kids from school, and then the van would not start in the drive line. We were in the front of the drive line, and so we had to kind of push it over there, and I'm thinking to myself, what can we do? I know I'm a super expert on auto repair, and
Right.
so I thought, okay, well, Matt 1.0 lives just down the street. If we can get a jump and get started, I could go get a new battery. And sure enough, within 5 minutes, Matt was there, and he gets awarded the nicest guy ever, Matt 10.0. I can't thank you enough for helping us out there. And
no problem. My pleasure.
yeah, and so you were awarded the first 10.0 podcast award for Matt. So that's the story. Why you were promoted.
Oh, I'm such a good person.
You are. I'm very glad to have met you back in that classroom. Back
yes.
then. And appreciate you coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks again.
The question is, did he use his TIG welder to jumpstart the car?
Right, yes.
No, I should have, though.
Yeah, that would explode it,
Yeah, mine is dangerous.
right?
That's a pinch.
If you have any questions for us, we're at, and this is why I love comics, at gmail.com. We're on the Twitter. Check us out. We are all over the place, wherever you get podcasts. We are there. We appreciate you listening. We know you have other things you can do. So, and this is why I love comics, I'm Andy.
Mike.
And I'm Matt.
And we'll talk to you next time. Bring on the Thunder Chicken.
The Christmas edition Thunder Chicken goes a little something like this: Christmas tree, Christmas tree, Christmas tree, Christmas tree.
Yeah, I can't even do that. My voice is dying out here.
F-U-C-K-me, then I guess all of you have felt almost all of them. These animals need to live. I know what you feel sometimes. What are we doing? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Yo,
What?
it's Matt.
I did it.
Yay.
He can be taught. Technology can catch up with even old duffers.
Congratulations.
Yeah, my computer froze up.
We never have problems here.
No, this is like
No.
we're like Mercury. It's all like smooth and shiny, and